Guys, it's TheFrXion here, or Tank12, however you call me, I don't really care. Welcome back to auction day 5, where Wargaming are now selling the T54 Heavy. We're going to be taking a closer look at this vehicle on Tanks GG, because I think that Wargaming is not showing off everything regarding this tank. It has a lot of downsides, and I think it's important that we look at the full picture, because it's going to cost you 175,000 free experience. And at least the very good note here is it doesn't seem to be overpowered. It looks rather underwhelming, to be fair. So I want to inform you guys so you know what you're getting yourself into. So this is the visual model of the T54 Heavy, and you can see immediately it has a very close resemblance to the Renegade and also the T110E5. There's a very big weak spot on top, and it is again the very good and well-known American cupola, and this one is incredibly easy to penetrate if you do have at least 240 millimeters of penetration, which this tank does. And yeah, that's going to be probably one of the biggest downsides to this vehicle, because even though the turret is really strong on most of the angles, it just doesn't hold up when it has this big weak spot. Now the upper plate is fairly heavily armored. It's above 150 millimeters, but the lower plate once again is a very easy target, and it's very large as well. So armor wise, this vehicle is not going to hold up very well if you do have the ability to shoot it from the front and also like that cupola. Sadly, that will mean that you're going to have a bit of a hard time. Moving on, DPM of the vehicle is also not that great. Dispersion also not that great. You do 450 damage with a single shot, even though it is a 120 millimeter gun, so it's a bit weird, to say the least. You have an AP shell, a heat shell, and a high explosive shell. You can see that the high explosive shell has 60 millimeter penetration, the heat shell has 300. So yeah, it's a step up by about 60 millimeters, but 300 millimeters for a tier 9 heavy tank with a heat shell, that's not that great. At least the shell velocity on the AP shell is pretty great with 1067 meters per second, but at the same time, the penetration of 240 millimeters is not that great. It takes quite a long time to reload, 12.46 seconds. Rate of fire isn't that great, that's why the DPM is also not that great, and the aim time could be better, 2.68 seconds for a fully aimed in shot. You can also see that the dispersion of this vehicle while moving and while turning is not that great either, 0.20. So that means you'll probably have to utilize a vertical stabilizer to make this tank just a bit more flexible and a bit more rewarding, in my opinion. Top speed is 35 kph, so it's very similar to the T110E5. Power to weight ratio is okay, 14.46 horsepower per ton. I think you can work with that. The reverse speed of 15 kph is okay as well. I think you're going to be used to all of these things if you play heavy tanks. It does not turn very well, 25.03 degrees per second, so it's quite sluggish, and it's not going to feel very good. But the hard and medium terrain stats are all not that bad, to be fair. Soft stats are, as we'd expect, not very good. That's just kind of what you get. The vehicle does have 12 degrees of gun depression, which is pretty damn good. 20 degrees of gun elevation, which is also very good. And the turret traverse is only 26.07 degrees per second, so it's very sluggish. So when you get this vehicle, you probably want to invest a little bit into the turn rate and into mobility maybe as well. But the dispersion value is probably one of the biggest downsides for it, because it means that this tank is supposed to be playing in close quarter combat, but it's not going to be very effective in my opinion. It does have 1700 HP, it's less than the M103. The M103 did actually get a HP buff a couple of years ago, and I think this tank would benefit from it as well, because even though the M103 is also a very easy target to shoot at, this vehicle has a very big cupola on top, which is easily penetrated. It does seem to have a lot of great armor, but we did take a look at the model and we can see that the tumor on top is just in full effect. It's very easy to go through basically anywhere, and it's almost always going to be a clear pen for tier 8. Even tier 9, like even tier 8 players and tier 9 upwards, it shouldn't be a problem for you. So if we do get everything fully upgraded on this vehicle, and if we do have brothers in arms on this tank, let's say we also have clutch braking, snapshot, and maybe even off-road driving, the tank does become a little bit more, well, accessible. It does have decent view range, 400 meters, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. Repair is also going to be important. But right here, as you can see, the vehicle itself, well, you can get the dispersion down to 0.38, and we're going to probably go with a mobility slot instead of a firepower slot. But yeah, there you can see like the traverse speed, the turret traverse. If you go for the power output tuning setup 1, you can basically take 5 degrees of your turret traverse speed, or you can improve it by about 5 degrees, but at the same time you're gonna lose quite some reverse speed there. Yeah, it looks like a tank that will kind of underperform, to be fair, and it's gonna go for 175,000 free experience, and I think for tier 9, that's not really worth it all that much. I have to be honest though, it is kind of a unique tank, or a nice tank if you like the E5, if you like the American heavies. I think it's balanced, it doesn't look overpowered, it more looks like on the weaker side, to be fair. But I still kind of think that some players will have their fun with it. But is it going to be worth the 600,000 free experience people will pay for it because it's a new premium tank? Probably not, no. So I would suggest that if you wanted to play American heavy tanks, you can just play the E5, you can play the Renegade, which is a much better tank than this, or you can play the M103 as well, which is kind of on par in my opinion. Obviously, with the right equipment, if you do go this way, you could improve the vehicle a little bit. Right here, like if you go with experimental equipment, right, you might just have a tank that is a bit more, well, a bit more fun, right? But do you always want to invest heavily in equipment for a single tank when you could have other tier 9 tanks that are a bit more, like a bit more competitive in my opinion? You can see right here, this is what this vehicle looks fully kitted out, even with premium consumables. Like the dispersion values, it's so hard to get the dispersion down all the way. I am currently using, as you can see, like a mobility device here, and you could improve it even further if you go for the bounty device, like a bounty aiming device, and it's almost necessary to get it down to 0.34. But that's a lot of resources you have to invest to make this tank like at least decent in my opinion. So yeah, is the T54 Heavy tank worth it? Well, I don't really think so, unless you invest a lot of resources into it yourself. Well, that rounds up this video. It's a bit longer, but I think we had to talk about the vehicle itself, and hopefully you guys are better informed now. So I see you guys in the next one. Until then, have a good one.